Few trees arrived around the windmill, helping to disguise things a little bit, a bit of bushing, and now I'm working on a little small rise in the ground just to give a bit of character to this middle board. Cardboard formers going in, and it'll be plaster of Paris over the top in a day or two when that's all dried. Next day, a bit more of the formation created out of cardboard. I like to try and get enough bits of cardboard that the plaster of Paris won't sag too much, although it never looks realistic if it's just over formers like this, unless you use things like sculptor mould to build up the areas between the formers. So that will be the next little job, is to put some plaster of Paris onto this once it has fully dried. Oh, and by the way, what do I use to stick it down with? Well, I find that sticking this sort of thing, it's really useful to use a PVA that dries quickly and is sticky. And I found that Anita's tacky PVA glue is very good for this. The nozzle does tend to block a little bit. You have to give the tube a really good shake after you finish to get the glue out of the nozzle and back into the bottle. Otherwise, next time you find the nozzle's dried up. But apart from that, good product. Now, start putting some cloth. I've cut up some squares or pieces, and it's a case of dipping them. And this is a tip I got from Charlie at Chadwick of using an old paint tray. So you can dip the cloth and then you can wipe it back. I probably should have cleaned the tray a bit, but never mind, won't matter. So dip the cloth and then wipe it back onto the tray, and then it can go over anywhere we like. So we'll just put a few pieces on. Obviously they'll sag down, but we can sort that out later. Dragging it out like that just gets rid of the worst of the water. Over the edge. It's quite a satisfying process doing this, because quite quickly one begins to get something not dissimilar to what one was intending in terms of shape. There we go. It's a matter of working out roughly where one wants to put the pieces. And it's sort of building up layers, trying to not get too many creases. The great thing is it goes off quite quickly, so that not a long time before you can begin to put something on top. As I say, I tend to fill in some of the worst of it with sculptor mould, and then that helps to get rid of any of the more obvious dips and nooks and crannies. Go there. So I'm probably going to need to come back and just do a little bit more, cut a few more pieces. Can go there, that'll do. Sorry, it's a bit boring this, isn't it? Watching just plaster dry, really. As I say, yes. Over there. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do is cut this piece in half. Is there. about a little bit to try and smooth down the bank. There. There's a little bit down here to do. I'll probably just cut that off again. Put that in. Talk to yourself, it's the easiest way, you know. First sign of madness, so they say. And then I think we'll just put a piece over here just to try and get rid of that little dip a little bit. That's cool. Make the dip a little bit less obvious. Okay, so as you can see, we've got the basic plaster down now. I think probably going to need to put a second coat on once that's dried. So time to go and wash hands and everything, and try not to get plaster all over the camera. So that's the first layer down, just to give you an idea. It's beginning to come on, but you can see just on the camera how bumpy and lumpy it is and how need to smooth that off. So probably might put a bit of sculptor mode into some of the dips and crannies first, and then put another layer of plaster over the top. We'll see how it goes. Back for some more plaster of Paris bandage. I've got some small pieces. What I'm going to do is sort of scrunch them up and put them in some of the little dips to give us a bit more body, and then I've got a couple of big pieces to put over the top. And do the snake a start. So there's a dip there, so I think what I'm going to do is fold it up, put it in just to sort of fill the dip up and soften the edges. Might be another piece in there, I think. That'll hopefully fill that one up and take off some of the hard edges. So another bit here to do. Quite good this stuff because you can just mould it any shape you like, so hopefully that will just take off some of the sharp edges. There's a bit over there to do, which I knew about. We can just sort of put a piece down the middle, another piece on top of that. I'm just muttering to myself again, I'm sorry about that. I hope you can hear that on the camera phone. So there's a bit of edge there that needs a bit of work. Okay, so where next? Was you perhaps can't see it on the camera, but there's a nasty edge here. Needs softening off. So I'll put it down on top. And then put another piece underneath the corner to try and soften it up. Now for a couple of bigger pieces to go over the top to take out some of the edges, a bit smoother, and another piece, I'll put that down here. Okay, right, I'm going to dry my fingers a little bit, shut the camera off and then carry on. Okay, well I put a few more coats of plaster Paris on. Now to just let it all dry. I'm going to let it dry a bit before I even try and vacuum up the dust here, because it'll go everywhere. So there's going to be some clearing up to do, get rid of the water, but I'm going to let everything dry first, because otherwise it'll just make even more of a mess. It's one of the downsides of plaster Paris. Having done that, then I'll get the sculptor mould out, start filling any little bumps and stuff to smooth the ground out, and then think about how to put grass and stuff on it, or might have a little sort of group of trees, some bushes, bracken, don't know, haven't quite decided yet. You know, see how it goes. Okay then. Okay, time to mix up some sculptor mould. If you've never used this, it's basically, I guess it's paper fibres mixed with plaster Paris, so you can sort of make anything you like really. It's sort of make a putty sort of thing. You use it like a sort of modelling clay once it's wet. Anyway, so I'll put a little bit in my pot, my handy pot for mixing this sort of stuff. Won't put too much in, just to start with. So I don't know whether you can see that, but it's sort of, yeah, paper fibres or cloth fibre mixed with plaster Paris. Add a bit of water. Okay. And then mix it up. Good mix, get the water into it, sort of chomp it around. As I say, it sort of goes a little bit sort of clay, or I found it can make cliffs, rocks and things out of it. That's how I made the swimming pool rockery around the pond in the garden I showed you in the last video. So it begins to dry out quite quickly, so I'm going to put a little bit more water in, because I want to be able to sort of spread this over the plaster and work it in a bit. So I'll put a drop more water. There we go. Give it a good stir up. So it begins to get sort of a little bit like polyfiller, well, or housing, filler for walls and holes and things, and wood filler. It's nice and moist. So what I can do is put a bit on, and then I can spread it in. Good thing is it sort of fills up all the little holes in the plaster of Paris bandage, so you don't get those showing through. Couple of good dollops. And you can use it to fill up any sort of little bits that where you've got odd edges that don't look right. You can sort of smooth things over. Okay, so that's a bit more. And of course, because it's plaster of Paris effectively anyway, it will just sort of merge in with the plaster of Paris bandage, and then solidify to form a nice firm surface. You can use a modelling knife if you want to smooth this out, or you can just use your fingers. I find it easier just to chuck it on the fingers, just begin to let it go off a little bit so it begins to dry, and then you can smooth out anything more you need. So go back to it. thick a bit there just to fill in sort of an area which didn't look quite right. Okay, 3 more in there. It's just got a sort of hard edge there that we need to soften up. So, and of course, if you put too much on, you can always cut it off or scrape it off, or use a bit of sandpaper just to smooth it down. So there we go. Bits here that are beginning to dry, just gently smooth them down. Doesn't matter if it's got a little bit of imperfection. Anyway, so I'm going to get on with a bit more. Okay, well, scope to mould layer applied. It's already beginning to go off, but it will take probably 24 to 48 hours to be fully dry. So I'm going to let it dry really well, then give it a very light sand down just to get rid of any rough bits. Have a look, see if I need to put any more on, and after that I should be able to then give it a coat of brown acrylic paint in order to take away the horrible whiteness of it, and then think about what I'm going to put on it. I think it's probably going to be sort of scrub ground, so rough grass, and lots of bushes and things, just to sort of just a bit of rough ground, I think. But we'll see, it might change, you never know, who knows. Okay, see you next time. Sculptor mould has been applied. I had to do a few extra bits to fill in some of the cracks, and particularly just to stick the edge of the plaster of Paris down. However, it now has just about dried, so I think I'm about ready to start applying some brown paint. I tend to use an acrylic paint, and this one is a raw umber, and find that's a nice dark colour. You can see it on the board around here, and being an acrylic, it gives a good coverage, because I don't like seeing little bits of white through grass and the rest of it. So I find just squishing a bit on, spreading it round with a brush, and just spread it out as far as one can. I know some people like to water it down a bit. I've not found that necessary. In fact, I actually found that having the raw paint gives a better coverage and gets into all those little holes. But if one wants to, yep, you can add a little bit of water, helps it spread. Sometimes helps it gets into the cracks, but I don't bother myself. Anyway, tedious little job, off we go doing some painting. A few minutes later and we have a brown hillside. Now I'm sure I'd have missed a few bits, so I'm going to let that dry and then go over it carefully, looking for any little white spots, because it's amazing how they stand out and are really annoying. I also really need to give this bit here a paint, but I'll probably do that with some watered down acrylic, because it's already been painted once, so it just needs cleaning up a bit. Anyway, there we go, another bit done, on our way to a new hillside. See you later. Very quick update, some bushes have been planted on the hillside, a bit of fencing is being constructed, it's just drying, that's why the glue tub's rusty on it, to help it dry. So, work goes on. A little bit more progress to report. Added some bushes onto the hillside, and as you can see I have also now started putting down some quite long static grass, some I think it's 6mm autumn mix I think. Looks a bit of a mess at the moment, as you can see, but when I vacuum up all the loose stuff, hopefully the bushes that I put down first will reappear from the piles of grass, and we'll end up with a hillside that looks a bit sort of rough and ready. That's my plan. If it doesn't work, of course, one of the good things about model railways is you can always scrape it all off and start again. Static grass has been applied to half of the hillside and vacuumed up, and discovered a little bit of a challenge that the light green bushes I'd stuck on, you can see a few there, don't show up so well with against the light green of the grass, but I think what I might do is spray a little bit of glue onto them and then put some very bright flock on top to sort of make it into gorse or something like that. Anyway, I've got the other half to do and join up with the rest of the grass. I'll have to tidy up the corner a bit to do that, but never mind. And a bit of black paint helps to finish it off, gets rid of that horrible cardboard, and takes your eye away from the edges and more onto the hillside. So now I just need to finish off the fencing and move on with that. But I think that'll be in the next video. Bye for now.